Okay, you're ready to go.
Hello, everybody. So today is the second day of FSC 2020, and we are kicking off with the first session on authenticated encryption. And today with me, I'm Elena Andreeva, are Johan Dahmen and Florian Mendel. So the first talk is gonna be is called the ZOCB and ZOTR tweakable block cipher modes for authenticated encryption with full absorption, and it's gonna be presented by Tetsu. Tetsu has 5 minutes like each of the participants in this session. And if you have questions to Tetsu and everybody else during the session, please post them in the chat. You have also a link here. So Tetsu, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. So I'm going to talk about ZOCB and ZOTR. So this talk is about the non-spaced authenticated encryption with associated data scheme that uses a tweakable block cipher as a primitive. Theta CB3 is probably the most well-known scheme in this category, and it has a path to process a plain text to encrypt it into a ciphertext, and there is a separate path to process associated data, where this authentication data is XORed into here to produce the final tag. So the process for plaintext and that for associated data are separated. And the question we ask is whether we can efficiently integrate these processes to reduce the number of primitive calls. This is a natural question to ask because it was explored for sponge-based and PLF-based AED schemes. So the ICE plaintext block in Theta CB3 is processed in this way, where the TBC, the tweakable block cipher, takes the counter and the nonce as the tweak input. And the natural idea is to use the tweak input to process a block of associated data to fully utilize the input of the tweakable block cipher and to achieve the full absorption. However, we have to maintain a counter and we need the dependency of the nonce. And for that, we rely on masks for the counter and nonce. Like in this figure, where alpha and beta are obtained by encrypting the nonce, and we realize the counter was the doubling operation. Now, we can abstract the structure as a big tweakable block cipher tilde E, where tilde E takes a nonce, counter, and associate data block as the tweak input. Now, with this big tweakable block cipher tilde E, we can design an AED scheme that we call IZOCB. In IZOCB, associated data blocks are processed as the tweak input, and there is no separate process for associated data block if it is not long. Of course, if associated data is long, then there will be a separate process for it. A question is whether this is secure, and the short answer is yes. For privacy, it is fine from the uniqueness of the nonce and counter, and for authenticity, even though the tag is independent of A1 and A2 in encryption in this figure, meaning that changing A1 and A2 does not contribute to the tag. A tag is a function of the entire associated data in decryption, and we can prove that IZOCB provides authenticity and it works fine. Now, ZOCB is obtained from IZOCB by using this structure as the big tweakable block cipher tilde E. So the entire picture of ZOCB looks like this. I will not explain the details, but the point here is that the process of associated data blocks is fully integrated into the process of a plaintext. In the paper, we have more about ZOTR that eliminates the tweakable block cipher decryption from ZOCB by using two-round Firestorm network. And for the instantiation, we propose TAS, which is a tweakable block cipher obtained from AES-256, where we use the concatenation of the key and tweak as the AES-256 key. I'd like to remark that the security of this construction needs to be analyzed, which is left to the community. For software implementation, we have all these nice graphs in the paper, and everything is available from this URL.
Thank you, Tetsu.
No more slide. Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
So finally, let me briefly compare ZOCB and ZOTL to the previous designs. The number of primitive calls is for associated data of A blocks and plaintext of M blocks, where we assume that the block length is the same as the tweet length. If A is less than M, we can eliminate the entire primitive calls needed to process associated data. And if A is larger than M, then we can reduce the primitive calls to a half of theta CB3 and OTR. And this is the end of my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tetsu. Thank you very much. Now we will switch to the next speaker of this session. That's Chuan Guo, and he will speak on towards low energy, leakage resistant authenticated encryption from the duplex sponge construction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could you hear me? Thank you for the kind introduction, and good afternoon. Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So I will. So it's me again. This time I will control the time. So this talk is about duplex, the duplex based on the sponge construction. They use the keyless crypto communication F. The duplex could be used to build AADs. So for example, this is ASCON, one of the CISA final winners. Now, from the practice of masking duplex to defend against the side channel attacks, there is a question. Does the duplex construction offer some sort of leakage resilience? The idea is the internal secrets here, they are always evolving. So it is infeasible to mount the DPA. So they can just be lived there, and we only need to mask the read functions to protect against the DPAs or side channel attacks. And the similar commands could be found in, for example, the KYAC paper. So this is a question, and open question in the semantic research field. Our first result is a positive answer to this question. We consider this duplex-based stream encryption, and we assume that these internal secret states are unpredictable from the leakages. So this is a minimum leakage assumption. We also assume the permutation pi is a random permutation. This seems unavoidable here. So with this, we establish the eavesdropper security with leakages for this duplex-based encryption. There were two concurrent works on leakage resilience of duplex. They use the entropy preserving leakage assumption and the classical bounded input leakage assumption. And I think they offer simple and concise theory and analysis. But for our results, the unpredictable leakage may be verifiable in practice. We can just run a side channel state recovery and measure the surface probability, and this is the advantage. So anyway, the two approaches are complementary, and I hope all of them could help push this research direction forward. We can then use the encrypted MAC composition to build a two-pass duplex-based AAD, but for better efficiency, we may prefer one-pass designs. So the one-pass is not good for decryption leakages. So the question is, if we insist on one-pass, what can we achieve? Regarding this, we note that when the internal state has not been recovered, the duplex functions as a normal standard one-pass AAD. And when the internal states have been fully recovered from the leakages, it collapses to a keyless crypto hashing and leaving a secure hash digest that we can do something with it. So we come up with such a design. We use a tweakable block cipher to absorb the hashing digest, and use the tweakable block cipher to generate the initial state. The AED key is only used by the tweakable block cipher, so we only need to mask the TBC and leave the others just there. So this could greatly reduce the energy consumption. Interestingly, we somewhat meet the ASCON and JBEN design. Please watch my full video for full discussion. To summarize, our AED mode TT Sponge is one pass, it's online, it uses if we use an n-bit tweakable block cipher, it has beyond n divided by 2-bit multi-user security, see the 3 lines. The classical C divided by 2 term remains there, but as C could be larger than n, the concrete security could be nice. The mode was instantiated by our group as the algorithm's book and submitted to NIST. So please see the website for details. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you very much. The next speaker is going to be Bertram Pottering.
Can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your screen. And Bertram is going to talk about combiners for AED. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So this presentation, I'm presenting a paper that is co-authored by Paul Rösler from Ruhr Bochum. It is about AED combiners. Before I tell you what an AED combiner is, I tell you what a cryptographic combiner is in general. So we start with some type of primitive, and we start actually with n copies of the same primitive. When I say primitive, think of a block cipher or think of a max schema or something like this. And then we want to use a combiner, a function that combines all these primitives into one of the same type, such that we hedge against failures. In particular, what I want is that this primitive, the combined one, P, is secure if at least one of the ingredients is secure, or put differently, equivalently, I want that P is insecure only in the unlikely case that all of my ingredient schemes fail. Combiners have a long history in cryptography. Building combiners for the symmetric, standard symmetric primitives is straightforward, but I'm going to show you later how this works. For hash functions, it's much more involved if we care about random oracle behavior. One can do this for asymmetric schemes, which is kind of an important thing in the last couple of years because of the transition to post-quantum schemes, which one doesn't really trust, but also not the classical ones. And then one can do this also for fancy primitives like indistinguishability obfuscation. Today's talk is about combining AED schemes into one. You may wonder, is this any relevant? Don't we understand how to build AE schemes? So here I give you a couple of reasons why this might be relevant. Some components of AED schemes proved to be insecure in the past. So RC4 was trusted for 15 years plus. Triple DES has a small block length, which was also accepted for a long time, but is not anymore. Direct constructions fail as well. So I stole these 2 examples from Katsuhiko's talk, invite to talk later of today, so listen to him about these. Some of the very well-established AED schemes are actually very hard to implement, so one can get the implementation wrong for it not being constant time. And we may have been locked to some old-fashioned schemes for standardization issues or political issues. So how do I build AED combiners? So as a warm-up, let's start with looking at how to combine symmetric primitives, the standard ones. So if I have a block cipher, I will combine it sequentially. I first run the one, then the other. Think of actually triple DES as being a combined form of 2-3 instances of DS. If I have max, I don't run it sequentially, I run it parallel. So I use a concatenation of 2 MAC values. If I want to build a peer F, I will use XOR likely because the others don't work. And in each case, actually, if I say this is the right way to do it, the others will not work. Now, if we look at AED, they have components of all the 3 of them. So this is in a confidentiality primitive. It's for authentication. I also want it to look like pseudorandom. So in a sense, I cannot pick any of these 3 methods because then for other reasons, the other goals will not be met. So in that sense, it's a somewhat non-trivial thing, but no worries, we give solutions. So we have solutions on the practical side and on the theoretical side. On the practical side, we give combiners, and a generic combiner that just takes 2 AED schemes and it will generalize to more, and it is provably optimal. Now, wait for it for the definition of optimal. We also have for non-generic ID schemes where I know something about how they are built, for example, through ciphertext translation, like these two, or encrypted MAC approach like this one. For this, we can do even better than optimal. On the theoretical side, we have an infeasibility result, namely, if you have a combiner, then intuitively you might think if you first encrypt it, then you decrypt, then internally you will invoke twice the encryption function of the two primitives, the two components, and twice the decryption function when you decrypt. So overall 4 calls. But our theorem says that if you just have 2 calls, you can never securely combine. You need at least more than 4, and our generic combiner here will actually use 5 invocations in total, and this is why we call it optimal. So in the last minute, I will tell you just how we built one of our compilers. We have many more in the paper, but I give you an idea of how one of them work. So what you see here is just the syntax that I'm using on the next slide for AAD schemes. We use nonces and we use ADs. This would be the sequential combiner that is not secure. So we just encrypt, and then we encrypt again using the same N and AD pair. And on the decryptor side, we will just decrypt in the opposite order. So if I encrypt it with the second scheme second, then I will decrypt with the second scheme first. This is not secure because maybe the second scheme doesn't fully protect the integrity of ciphertext here. However, if I do this on the decryptor side, I decrypt first, rework this value here, and then I decrypt the second to get the message, but also I re-encrypt this intermediate value here to get a ciphertext C prime, then I would expect that these are the same, and so I compare here. So the generic combiner that we propose will decrypt, and it will re-encrypt and compare, and this is provably secure. Observe that we would use in this construction the N and AD would be passed 5 times, namely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our non-generic combiners will improve on that and save some resources there. And that concludes my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bertram. I would like to remind everybody, please post your questions in the Tulip channel, which we have a link from the program to that channel. Also, we have a link from the chat here. So far, I see only 1 question, so please put your questions there for the speakers of this session. And the next talk now is called Fast Decryption, a new feature of misuse-resistant authenticated encryption. And the talk is going to be given by Kazuhiko Minematsu. And Kazuhiko, yes, he's here. Please.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
2 questions. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction. So I'd like to talk about something on the misuse-resistant authenticated encryption. Okay. So this shows the syntax of the classical nonce-based authenticated encryption. So we have nonce A, associated data A, and the plaintext M, and the ciphertext C and the T here. And on the decryption, the receiver takes the tuple of N and A and C and T to have the plaintext or check the verification, and then if it is correct, we have a plaintext.
Kazuhiko, I see your main slides too. I don't know if that's the case with
All right.
Yes.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's good.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. So the nonce must be unique for each encryption. And when it is repeated, the debasting attack can happen. For example, the GCM there's a famous attack against GCM. And insteadly, this problem is not a problem because nonce can be a counter or a random variable of sufficient length. But in practice, nonce may repeat due to various reasons of misuse. And to overcome this problem, the Logaway and Shrimpton proposed the scheme called SIV. The scheme is shown here. So as you can see, it consists of it first processes the PRF, taking the associated data and the plaintext, where associated data may contain nonce to derive the tag T here. And this T is used as an IV for the underlying IV-based encryption to take the encryption of the plaintext M here. This structure maintains security even if the nonce repeat, because as long as the total input of A and M is unique, because then the T is expected to be random. makes this encryption secure. And this structure is called the misuse resistant AE, or MRA for short. So if we use a block cipher to implement SIB, say the MAC can be a CMAC and IB-based encryption can be a counter mode, then we need rate 1 operation for MAC and rate 1 operation for encryption, means that the total rate for the SIB is 1/2 for both encryption and the decryption. But we already know that if the nonce is actually not repeating, then we have a nonce-based associated data. AE schemes exist, such as the famous OCB or the OTR or COFB, and so on. So there's a gap in the efficiency. So this talk is to describe a pretty simple idea to improve the decryption rate to the 1, while keeping the encryption rate being 1/2 save that is the same as the original SIB using a block cipher. And it is known that the encryption rate cannot be improved, substantially improved in principle, because we need the 2-pass operation for encryption. This means that my proposal, which we call the decryption fast SIB or DFB, is the best possible efficiency of MRA. So if we use a different primitive as a block cipher, say P, so decryption rate is the best possible decryption rate of nonce-based AE using this primitive, and the encryption rate is the best possible encryption rate of SIB using this primitive. The idea is quite simple. So we derived IB as an SIB in the same manner as SIB, but we do it to the output to the possibly rate 1 nonce-based encryption rather than the IB-based encryption. This simple idea, but has not been formally studied. So the most generic scheme, which we call the DFB1, is here. It combines the nonce-based AE here and PRF here. So this scheme, then the output of the encryptions is a tuple of the buoy and A and C and T here. So the decryption is just nothing but the decryption of the underlying nonce-based encryption. This is secure, but the problem is that the associated data is twice processed at encryption. And to overcome this problem, we need to implement some schemes to convert a nonce-based AE without associated data to nonce-based AE with associated data. And this problem has been studied by Logaway at 2002. So we can use this. And using this, his Logaway's scheme, namely the ciphertext translation and the nonce-stealing, we can derive 2 schemes that avoid the above-mentioned problem of associated data, twice processing associated data. And all schemes are secure. Okay, in the paper, I provide 2 concrete instantiations of a particular DFB2, second version. And the first version is the block cipher-based, which we call the OCB DFB. It uses a PMAC for PRF and the OCB for plain nonce-based AE. It is a parallelizable, and the encryption rate is 1/2 and the decryption rate is 1, while achieving the half of n-bit security similar to OCB. And the second concrete instantiation, which we call the CB DFB, is using the ZMAC for PRF and variant of the CB3, which we call CBL for the underlying authenticated encryption. It takes a 2 n-bit nonce, while the original CB3 takes n-bit nonce. It is parallelizable, and the encryption rate is 2/3, and the decryption rate is 1, and achieving the beyond burst bound n-bit security. Okay, this shows the comparison of the existing work and our constructions. That's it. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Kazuhiko, for the nice talk. Now we switch on to the next talk, which is called Release of Unverified Plaintext, Tight Unified Model and Application of Any Day. And the talk is going to be given by Avijit Dutta. Avijit, can you share your screen with us?
Yeah.
Thank
you. Can you show the screen?
Yes, if you can just, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a second. Yeah. So hello, I'm going to talk about release of unverified plaintext type unified model and application to any day. It's a joint work with Donghon, Niranjan, Bart, Mridul, Samitra, and Ferdinand. So as we know that in our authenticated encryption scheme, we must need to release the plaintext blocks after the successful verification gets completed in the receiver end. But in some situations, the buffer size in the receiving end is limited. And as a result of that, it might not be able to hold the entire plaintext at once. So therefore, receiver might have to release the plaintext before the verification. So to capture the security of this variant of authenticated encryption mode, the Andreeva et al. In Decrypt 2014 proposed a security model of AE, which is called the RAP security model, and they particularly employ the PA1 or PA2 notion for the confidentiality part of the AE, and the interrupt notion for the integrity part of the AE. And they've shown that that AE scheme is a RAP secure if it is PA1 and interrupt secure. Followed by that work in Eurocrypt 2015, Huang et al. Proposed a robust authenticated encryption scheme. And in IMAC 2015, Barwell et al. Have proposed a subtle authenticated encryption scheme. In Crypto 2017, Ashur et al. They have proposed a rough authenticated encryption notion. So these are the variants of the actual RAP model. But all of these models either employ the encode then SPRP paradigm, for example, in robust authenticated encryption mode or for rough authenticated encryption security mode. In those modes are basically two paths in both encryption and decryptions. And basically their security notions hold for a nonce-based AE, and security is wide when nonce is misused. So therefore, we need a kind of a security model in RAP scenario, which allows the nonce misuse and which needs to have a single pass decryption feature. So to this end, we have proposed our model, which we call as a AE-RAP security model. So in this model, the adversary is given access to the encryption, decryption, and the verification oracle in the real world, and the random function, a simulator, and a reject oracle in the ideal world. And if the adversary cannot distinguish the oracles in either of these worlds, then we will say that the authenticated encryption scheme is AERAP secure. And not only that, we have also proven that if a scheme is AERAP secure, then it is AE secure as well as PA1 secure and interrupt secure. And it's a bidirectional statement. Okay, so under this model, we have shown that the Sunday, which is a deterministic authenticated encryption scheme, which was proposed by Bernick et al. In FSC 2019, is not interrupt secure. So a Sunday is a deterministic block cipher-based authenticated encryption scheme that requires A plus twice M plus 1 many block cipher invocations, where A is the number of associated data blocks and M is the number of message blocks. And it is one of the candidates in NIST lightweight competition. Sunday is particularly efficient for processing short messages, and it offers good implementation characteristics both on lightweight and high performance platforms. But the bad news is that Sunday is not REP secure. So basically, we have mounted a universal forgery intra-REP attack on Sunday. So the attack is as follows. The adversary makes a decryption call with the tag set to 110 to the n-2 and with any arbitrary ciphertext C1, and it obtains a message block M1. So by that, adversary learns the first block cipher output, namely EK of 110 to the n-2, and that is nothing but M1 plus C1. Second, the adversary makes another decryption call, but now this time the tag is set to the sum of the first message ciphertext blocks and associated data block A1 star, which is the first AD block of the targeted associated data, and it obtains a message M2, and by that adversary learns EK of T2, which is M2 plus C2. Similarly, the adversary makes another decryption call, but now this time the associated data block is changed to A1 prime, which is different than the first data block of the targeted associated data, and it obtains another message block M3, and by that again adversary learns the EK of T3. And finally, adversary makes an encryption query where the first associated data block is set to the A1 prime, And the second data block of the associated data is set to A2 star plus delta, where delta is the sum of the second and third master ciphertext block sum. Okay, and it obtains C1 star, C2 star, and T star. And that actually helps the adversary to forge the cipher with the associated data block A1 star, A2 star, the tag T star, and the ciphertext block C1 star, C2 star. And that shows that this construction Sunday is not inter-UP secure. Well, the main feature or the fundamental feature of mounting the inter-UP attack on Sunday is that the adversary can learn the encryption value of the tag T, and the tag is controlled by the adversary because we are dealing in the inter-UP setting, right? So in order to mitigate this attack, what we can do, we have proposed a simple fix on the construction and proposed our construction, which we call Monday. So here the fix is that, so before the tag gets processed to the block cipher EK, we have employed a new function which is called the fix one function, which basically chops the last bit of the n bit value and appends there bit 1, right? So so we have shown that this Monday is inter-UP secure. Not only that, we have actually generalized our construction.
Avijit, if you can wrap up.
Yeah, sure. We have generalized our construction by this any day, and we have shown that the any day construction is basically a Burdett-bound secure construction, provided that this function rho1 and rho2, these are epsilon differential uniform and regular function. And Monday and Tuesday, you can see that is the easy instantiation of any day function. And we have also proposed another construction, which is called Tuesday, which is instantiation of any day. And it is optimal instantiation of any day construction. And these two constructions are inter-UP secure. And Tuesday makes an optimal number of block cipher calls. But that optimality comes at the cost of some additional multiplexers, which may slightly increase the hardware area. And that concludes my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Avijit. The next talk is on the security of sponge-type authenticated encryption modes, and it's going to be given by Biswajit Chakraborty. Biswajit.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, let me just share the screen. Okay, thanks for the introduction, Elena.
Okay.
Yeah, so Biswajit was, so he has
Okay.
some personal work, so I have to give the talk. So this is Ashwin, and the title of my talk is on the security of sponge-type authenticated encryption modes. So sponge-type AED, so the most popular AED in this category is the duplex mode, which is something like this. What you do is you take the message, ith message block, you XOR it to the upper part of the state, internal state, and then this is the ciphertext, and this is fed as the upper part of the next input, and the lower part simply goes as it is. So this upper part is called the rate. So this is the rate of absorption or rate of squeezing the ciphertext, and the lower part is called the capacity. So it's been proven that the privacy bound for this construction is order of dt by 2 power r plus c, where d is the data complexity or the number of online queries to the authenticated encryption, and t is the time complexity or the number of offline queries to the underlying permutation pi. Similarly, the authenticity bound has been shown to be order of dt by 2 power c. And this bound is not tight. So we have not yet found any attack that actually achieves this bound. So this is still an open problem. Okay, to mitigate this order of, so this dt by 2 power c actually makes it difficult to achieve good security with duplex using a small capacity part. So to mitigate this, another mode called Beetle was proposed. That what it does is it takes a linear function rho and absorbs the message mi and the current output yi, the upper part of yi, and combines them to create the next, create the new ciphertext block ci and the next input. So for this mode, privacy is shown as before, dt by 2 power r plus c, and the authenticity bound has been improved to dt by 2 power r plus c, provided so there is a condition that the time complexity or the number of offline queries to the permutation is less than 2 power r. Recently, in the NIST competition, there's been another proposal called SPOC. So SPOC is slightly different from the other two. So what it does is it absorbs the message block in the lower part. So it absorbs the message block in the so there is probably a mistake here. So in the upper part, the message is not absorbed. So directly the upper part of the output state is released, and that output state XORed with the message is released as a ciphertext. And in the lower part, the message is absorbed. So the absorption is done in the lower part. So this mode is slightly different from the previous two modes. So in this case, the privacy and authenticity, both bounds are claimed to be dt by 2 power r plus c with some other factors as well. But these are the main bounds, and there is no security proof as it is. So in this work, what we have done is we have proposed a generalization of all these modes, so duplex, beetle, and SPOC, and we call this the transform then permute mode. So in this mode, the feedback for this mode in encryption algorithm is something like this. So what we do is we take a general linear function LE that takes the current output, the R plus C bit output, and applies this linear function LE, and then XORs the message with some encoding. So this delta value is some domain separation encoding, and then we get the next input. And the ciphertext is generated as before. So we release the R bit current output, and the message is XORed to get the ciphertext. Okay, so and similarly in the decryption, what we do is we take the ciphertext and we use this another linear function LD, which is simply defined as LEX plus the upper part of the input X. And the processing
Ashwin,
is yeah.
Can you also hurry up a bit?
Yeah, I'm just okay. So in terms of bound, we show something like this. So this is a complex bound, but what you can observe is that we always get dt by 2 power b kind of thing whenever d and t are there, or there is a multi-collision. So these m-call variables, these are expectation of some multi-collisions on random sampling. So here you can just believe me that these bounds will be on the form of dt by 2 power b. We also gave some bound for the non-invertible case, and these can be found in the ePrint version of the paper. Finally, in application terms, so what we show is an improved security bound for beetle. So we get rid of this bound on T in the previous analysis. Second, we give security proof for the SPOC. So this is the first security proof for SPOC. And in case of duplex, we do achieve the previously proved bound, but we could not improve it. So this is still an open problem. So with this, I conclude the talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can start with the questions, and Johan and Florian will help me here.
Okay, well, thank you for all the talks. We have several questions in the chat. So maybe start with the first question to Tetzo. So there was a question by Ahmed. So what is the news of this new design feature that the authentication tag is independent of the part of associated data? As I see, for encryption, it helps in separating the tag generation from the rest of the protocol, which can be considered as a plus for efficiency. Respectively, and for the decryption, it has no news, right? So that's what's your take on this question here?
Okay, thank you for asking. So if I understand the question correctly, yes, the tag is independent of a part of AD, and this was needed to achieve the full parallelizability and the full absorption property simultaneously. In the previous works on, well, sponge-based and PLF-based schemes, when they achieved the full absorption, they could use the chaining value. The tag is dependent on the entire associated data. And so this was not a problem in these schemes, but when we consider a fully parallelizable scheme, we don't have a chaining value, and that's the reason why we have to consider, had to consider AD independent tag. And I think that answers the question. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Then there's another question for Tetsu. Actually, it's my question. So you use inside a tweakable block cipher, and then you add masks and so on. So what if the tweakable block cipher inside is already a block cipher based tweakable block cipher with masks and such? So you get 2 layers of mask. Is there a possibility for dangerous interference, or did I misunderstand?
Okay, thank you for asking. So in ZOCB, the primitive is a tweakable block cipher. And yeah. If I understand this question correctly, we can instantiate this tweakable block cipher from a block cipher.
Yeah, that's what's typically done often, no?
Yes, yes. And if we do this, we can achieve full parallelizability, and we will have this full absorption property. And that's fine. The problem, well, it's the difference will be the security level they achieve. If we start from a tweakable block cipher, we can achieve the full n-bit security when the tweak length is at least the block length. But yeah. If we start from a block cipher, the security will drop to the birthday bound. And so all other characteristics will be the same, but only the security bound will be different.
Okay, but there is no risk that these 2 mask conditions will interfere also?
This one and this one.
No, if you go, I think you go back maybe a slide. Yeah, there. No, forward. The slide you showed previously.
This one, the entire construction.
Back, please.
Page 8?
6. Yeah, keep it.
Okay.
So there you add 2i alpha to yes. AK, but inside AK, there's also maybe already something added, right? Or not? Or am I wrong?
No. In this case, this is a primitive. This is like skinny or some primitive. So okay. We don't further instantiate this one.
Okay, great.
The last thing one refers to if you, for instance, use for this tweakable block cipher XEX construction or something like that. Yeah. If you would then get some bad interaction with the masking in the beginning, if this could happen. Huh?
Yeah, that was the question indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I comment on that again? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the answer about the security is degraded half is correct, and I also would like to mention that if it is built on the block cipher, then the performance is also the same as the OCB, because if this small EK is say XEX, for every first block, please consider the XEX construction. The first part of the tweak is nonce, and it must be processed by single block cipher call. It means that to implement this small EK using the XEX construction, we always need 2 block cipher calls. So that means that this is kind of pointless. The efficiency is exactly the same, almost the same as the original OCB. That's my idea. How do you think, Tetsu?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So then go to the next paper. So there is a question by Bart Manning to Jan. So do you see to require in your scheme, you require that the starting and finalization of with this trickle block cipher is strongly protected against statual attacks. And then you map the idea to the construction of Ascon and Gibbon, where their starting and finalization uses a permutation. And the question is now, however, if this is strongly protected primitive in the initialization and finalization is similar to the primitive in the middle, how reasonable is your assumption that the outer primitives are strongly protected in the scheme?
Thank you for the comment and question. My answer would be we assume that the protected tweakable block ciphers are simply leak-free in our proof without any leakage. They are just the ideal tweakable block cipher without any leakage. This is a very coarse. Assumption. I feel it's very coarse. It is something like I would say it is something like the ideal model. So because actually there is no circuit that is leak-free, and we just assume the protected block cipher is secure with no leakage. So it is there is no hybrid to link the two words. So it is something like the ideal model. And as it is very coarse, I think it could be used for the protected permutations in ASCON. But of course, the protection should cover the key exhaust to avoid the leaking the key, of course. And the future work may consider how to model this protected primitive using game-based assumptions so that it could become verifiable in practice. This seems an open question actually in the field of leakage resilience, modeling the key generation function using game-based assumptions. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's it then. Then maybe another question to Bertram from Bart Manning. So your combiner already gives quite some overhead when using 2 authenticated encryption schemes. Does your combiner extend to multiple, like 3 or 4 or 5 authenticated encryption schemes? And how does the overhead scale?
Let me screen share. Can you hear me? Yes, I guess you can.
Yes.
So I answered this question already in the chat, but let me explain here with a picture. So this is our generic combiner, and this one is the case for 2. So actually in the paper, we do not really formally treat the case of more than 2 schemes, but it is quite clear how this extends. So for the encryption, we would have a linear expansion, just like continue the sequence here, encrypt 1, encrypt 2, encrypt 3, and so on. And then of course, we have here in the main check, we have to reverse this order. And for all but the last one, we would have to do this re-encryption step and compare. Now you can, it's the same thing whether you first decrypt everything and then from the second last ciphertext you re-encrypt everything and then compare the ends here, or whether you do this kind of stepwise, like you decrypt this one, compare, you decrypt this one, compare. That's of course not even a cryptographic argument. This is just about the order in which you do the comparisons. But beyond that, all our combiners have a linear expansion. I think by a factor of at most 2. One cannot really say that formally if one looks at the non-generic ones, because there we dismantle the AAD schemes into a PRF component. So for example, if we have an encrypt and max scheme, then we use the max scheme separately from the encryption scheme and so on. And then we get different factors for the max schemes and for the encryption schemes.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, to the next question. Florian, did you spot a question?
There is a question to Avijit. The notion of AERUP seems to be too strong than most of the other existing notions. Are there other existing AEAD schemes that you think might also provide AERUP security?
So actually, we think that any deterministic authenticated encryption schemes,
Yeah, of course.
which has a single pass decryption feature, should give a layer of security notion. In fact, all the other existing notion like RUPAE or robust authenticated encryption schemes, these are, for example, RUPAE. This is a non-space. I mean, this is useful for a non-space authenticated encryption scheme. But until now, I mean, except our scheme, there are no notions for a RUP notion for any deterministic authenticated encryption scheme, which has the single decryption feature, the single pass decryption feature.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Maybe I've got another one question from Amit.
Yes.
Shall I read it?
Yeah, you read it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the question is for DFB3. What happened to the security of the protocol if we remove S from the input of G function and replace the tweak input to the concatenation of S and V? But change it to the S XOR V to improve the efficiency of the protocol. So yeah, what's suggested here is to take an XOR of S here and do not remove this path. Okay, that nice suggestion. And actually, I haven't checked if such a an optimization works in a generic construction. But I would like to mention that in case of the say DFB2, which is based on the ciphertext translation, any small optimization like that one is hard to prove in a generic relying on the generic security of the nonce-based encryption, because in that, for example, if we take using the this PRF, so not a concatenation but an XOR of the plaintext here, would makes the proof of the DFB2 intractable, because this S value is involved in the two parts, this part and this part here, makes the proof intractable. And I'm not sure in case of the such optimization works for DFB3, but then it's an interesting question anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have, I see there's a whole discussion going on in the chat. So there's a question of Bart Manning to Ashwin and Keith Sponges, the rate. Bart says the rate part, but you should say rate. The rate can be as small as 1 bit. Can you comment on how restrictive your condition T is much smaller than 2 to the power R is? Ashwin?
Yeah, Tim, so I think I already gave the answer to Bart on the chat, but just to make it clear again. So actually this T much less than 2 power R was a condition that was in the previous analysis. So we have actually got rid of this condition. So in fact, our analysis actually says that this T much less than 2 power R is not required. So you can apply our technique whenever R is, even when R is equal to 1.
Okay.
So should be fine.
That's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, so I've already conveyed that to Bart through chat.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, do we have another question somewhere?
I have a question to Tetsu. Tetsu, how easily do you think you can make your approach more generic? Because you talk in your conclusion that you're looking for ways to make this approach more generic and apply it on robust AE and online AE schemes. And another aspect is, can you also use fork ciphers for this? So can you elaborate?
Okay, actually, fork cipher. Yeah, I think it's going to be An interesting approach. I think many tweakable block cipher-based constructions can, especially when we have the separate process for plaintext and associated data, then I think you can try to combine these processes into one and see if you can have the authenticity. And I think this approach can be applied to many contexts in the TBC-based related constructions. So I don't have a specific examples to illustrate, but I think it's the idea was trying in many other constructions.
So it's generally, we're trying to cast it in a more generic framework, I would say. Is that right?
I didn't get
because it applies to any construction that is instantiated by a tweakable primitive. So I would say that
at least you can think of applying this approach to a scheme. Whether it is not secure, whether it is secure or not will depend on the scheme, but at least you can define a scheme by using the tweak input to process an associated data block.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if we have other, I don't think we have questions that we did not have answers to. Or... If there are still questions, please speak up.
We didn't have a question to for the last talk, for what I see so far. Maybe Johan has some question there.
But there is, I see just a question came in.
Okay.
It says more a general question, maybe more a discussion. We now design schemes where the nonce can be misused without losing too much security. Would it not be a better idea for a scientific community to spend resources on promotion to industry to help them not misuse the nonce? Yeah, that's what I would say, but it's one of my students, so it makes sense.
That is a question too.
Yeah, but I don't know if we can have a discussion on that.
I don't trust the industry.
You don't, yeah, I worked for industry, so. Yeah.
Well, I will not comment on that.
Yeah, you work still for industry.
I'm kidding.
I think that wraps it up, no?
Bart Manning has one question. Yeah. So he says, you developed CHEM combiners and AED combiners. I could imagine there is a common approach. Is it possible to describe a generalized combiner that applies to multiple cryptographic functionalities at the same time? This is a question to Bertram.
Thanks for the question. I would not say that in my experience there's anything common between the two primitives, but this may be related to us using very different approaches. So for the CHEM combiners, we started with 2 chems, or like when I say 2, it means n. We started with 2 chems and tried to combine them, but we used external symmetric primitives as helper functions, for example, a PRF to mix in keys. And we thought this is appropriate because we wanted to solve a practical problem. But for and because we trust PRFs more than we as the author team, we trust more post-quantum, modern post-quantum secure, untested assumptions. Now, for AAD combiners, we couldn't take another PRF as another component, because actually the whole deal of AAD combiners is that we do not trust symmetric primitives in this setting. So why would we trust suddenly a PRF? And of course, now politics starts, and we can say, we know better how to build PRFs than we know how to build AAD schemes. But I thought it is here more clear to, if we use a PRF, to extract it from the AAD scheme, because you can turn an AAD scheme into a PRF, obviously. And that's what we do in these combiners. So in a sense, the AAD combiner paper is more puristic than the other one. And this is why I think the approaches are very different. And the general combiner, I didn't think about this, and from the top of my head, I wouldn't know how to do this. And have a look at the hash function combiners. They're very interesting, and you see they use completely different techniques than the CHEM combiners and the AAD combiners. Thanks.
Okay. So thanks, Bertram, and all the speakers of this session. Do we have more questions, or we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we're out of time anyway, so
Okay.
let's go to a break now.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thanks,